Hey, thanks for joining me again. It's Dr. Lewis Clark, and I'm back with you talking about how to save your brain from early cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases and conditions. So, last couple times we've been laying the groundwork of how does our brain work? What are the different areas of the brain involved in, and what are the signs of maybe we're having trouble there? Today, I'm going to begin a two-part series on what are things that we can begin to do and to stop doing. And we're going to start with the stop doing stuff mostly. All right. So, with that said, let's get into the reasons why the brain begins to misfire or lose its frequency of firing. Now, these are the 11 most common reasons. And honestly, on this video, there's no way I have time to do all 11. I'm going to hit the very top of this and the ones that I see most commonly in my practice. And then we're going to begin to see the things that need to be avoided to prevent this from happening. So let's start with stress. Man, I mean, if that's not the number one thing, it certainly is close because uh, there's more stress now than there's ever been. All kinds of uncertainty, all kinds of things pulling at us, time constraints, financial constraints, family issues. So stress causes a hormone release, stress hormones released that begin to actually atrophy the brain, promote brain inflammation, and break down the blood-brain barrier. So then, therefore, it allows things to get into the brain that are not supposed to get there. Okay, this is critical here. So you've got to have an idea of how to deal with the stress that's in your life, and I'm going to tell you that you're never going to get rid of all of it. Okay, but if you don't take some steps to prevent the things that it causes, you're going to suffer from problems from the brain because of stress. So the biggest stress, I'm going to tell you right now, is not emotional. The biggest stress is metabolic, meaning the way our body functions, and that is poor diet, uh, toxins, whether they be alcohol, smoking, or caffeine, food sensitivities, and other health problems like poor digestion, gut infections, autoimmune conditions, and pain. Pain actually shrinks your brain because when you're in chronic pain, you have a cortisol release, and that cortisol actually can burn out cells in your hippocampus, causing your brain to lose volume and also causing you to lose memory and ability to control stress and sleep and a whole bunch of other things. So stress is a big no-no. You got to have a way to deal with it. And I'm going to give you two things here to help you deal with stress. Number one is that as a Bible-believing Christian, I believe you need a relationship with God and a communication with Him through prayer and the Holy Spirit, because God, um, He promised in His Word that He would give us peace. And Jesus even said, "My peace I leave with you." And so that's what we need. But also, we've got to do some things physically, and we're going to get into that a whole lot more in our next series here. But as we said, the stress hormone cortisol causes degeneration of the hippocampus, causes memory loss and dementia, slows down the pituitary, which affects your thyroid and causes weight gain, which is a whole nother stress. Okay, so we want to get rid of the stress as much as we can, but we want to learn how to deal with it. Okay, I'm going to go into the physical side a little bit more, but yeah, I really want to stress that we are spiritual beings as much as physical and emotional. So, what about our gut function? Is there any chance that maybe there could be possibly some people in America with poor digestion? Yes, the answer is yes. Okay, it's common, but let me tell you something. If you've got poor gut function, you've got poor brain function. If your gut's on fire, your brain's on fire. You cannot separate the two. Okay, so keep that in mind that a lot of times the gut is the underlying problem for why your brain is beginning to have problems. So go back to again, what are the things we need to avoid to make sure we don't develop gut problems? Well, diet's going to be number one. Stress is going to be number two. Food sensitivities, leaky gut syndrome, dysbiosis, meaning we got too much bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria. In our society, for some reason, we try to make out like there are no good bacteria. There are absolutely essential bacteria to your health and your longevity. And there's also bad bacteria. That when you have too much bad and not enough good, that's called dysbiosis. One of the most common problems I have to deal with. So you need good bacteria going in, and that's what helps you get rid of bad bacteria. What are the most common food sensitivities? Well, there's your big three right there. And I'll say gluten and dairy by far the two biggest problems. And it's important that you find out if you have these issues by an elimination provocation diet or getting the proper testing. And you can't just go to the conventional labs. They don't test thoroughly for these problems. Now let's go to the third thing, brain inflammation. Now, brain inflammation means that, like I said, the brain's on fire. We've already said if the gut's on fire, the brain's on fire. Okay, so the this is the key thing about inflammation is what is the cause? Inflammation is the result, not the cause. Okay, so it could be things like conditions like diabetes. It certainly can be diet. It can be food sensitivities. All the things we've talked about, high homocysteine levels, alcohol, all these things. But there is some underlying reason for why you have brain inflammation. And I'm going to tell you the biggest one that's not even on here, most people don't even realize, is head traumas. So how much does a car accident or a fall or hitting your head contribute to why 10, 15, 20, or 30 years down the road you have signs of dementia, Parkinson's, or that? Well, just look at NFL players. They're fine while they're in their 30s and even into their 40s, but then when they've been out of football for about 20 years, all of a sudden they're coming up with all these neurodegenerative diseases because of brain inflammation was started from repetitive traumas and it never stopped. So it just continued to progress. That's a no-no. And there are some steps that can be taken nutritionally to stop that. But I'm going to give you a challenge here. Go through your history. How many head traumas have you had? How many car accidents have you been involved in? What kind of sports have you participated in? Especially today, one of the biggest ones is soccer and all the headers. Okay, those are causing a lot of problems and we don't even realize it. The last thing I'm going to talk about today here, I believe, is neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are the thing that allows synapses or one neuron to talk to another. And if your neurotransmitter levels are off, you're going to have brain-based problems. And this is where the majority of the drugs that are taken for depression, anxiety, and insomnia and things, this is where they work. And they really work with the neurotransmitters. And there are natural solutions and options that are available for us. Okay, so there's some of the top four neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine, you see, is tied to memory. It's also tied highly to the autonomic nervous system. Serotonin, that's our enjoyment, satisfaction, sleep, dopamine, motivation, social worth, and GABA, of course, is our brain inhibitory neurotransmitter, which helps with calming and preventing anxiety. So neurotransmitter imbalances, you can have all kinds of different problems, and lots of different things can lead to that and cause it. One of the biggest things I want to point out right here, this MSG and aspartame, these are excitotoxins. These things actually cause your brain to overfire, and it can even cause neuron death, brain cell death, if you have a susceptible or weak brain. That's why a lot of people get headaches from having those type of chemicals. So a lot of things we have to watch out for. The last thing, this is really, a lot of genes get blamed for a lot of stuff. Okay, but what I want you to see is that your genes are rarely the reason why you have a problem. But epigenetics is big, and epigenetics means the way the genes express themselves. So sometimes when we're having someone with a history, and even maybe a family history, we need to look at their epigenetics, the way their genes are expressing themselves. Here's the difference. So genes are like a humongous library, okay? But you don't read every book in your library at the same time. And your lifestyle and what's going on inside your body and around your body determines which genes are expressed, and then that determines what our health is like. So we do sometimes run genetic testing when necessary to see where there may be some weaknesses and how we can support those naturally. So remember, you cannot separate the health of your body from the health of your brain. They are the same. They are connected 100%. So thank you again for joining us today. The next time we're going to go into not only seeing the things we need to avoid here today, we're going to go into the things we need to start doing in order to save your brain. Until next time, I'm going to ask you once again, live life well and God